Welcome back once again to the Student Loan Show. Today is Tuesday, April 28th, 2015. My name is Jay Fleischman. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And today's going to be a pretty big show. We're going to talk about what happens to your student loans if your school closes. Today's show is made all the more important in light of the tremendous news that came down the pipeline late on Sunday, April 26, 2015, that CCI, or Corinthian Colleges Incorporated, which was an embattled for-profit education chain, decided that it was going to immediately cease all operations and discontinue instruction at its remaining 28 campuses. The California-based for-profit chain is going to end the college careers of some 16,000 students. Corinthian Colleges Incorporated has been in the middle of this enormous public downfall since last July 2014. The company says that it's working with other schools to provide continuing educational opportunities for the displaced students, but the remaining Corinthian schools are going out. This closure includes 13 remaining Everest and Wyotech campuses in California, Everest College Phoenix, and Everest Online Tempe in Arizona, the Everest Institute in New York, as well as 10 locations of Heald College in California, one in Hawaii, and one in Oregon. Apparently, Corinthian was in the process of trying to sell its schools. In fact, in November, the company announced that it would sell 56 campuses to ECMC Group, which is a nonprofit student loan servicer. But Corinthian's California campuses were not part of the deal, primarily because of the buyer's concerns about outstanding litigation with California Attorney General Kamala Harris. In recent weeks, Corinthian said that it was close to selling its 12 Heald College campuses in California, Oregon, and Hawaii, but the California Attorney General's office was requiring the future buyers assume all liability. Also, the California Bureau for Private Post-Secondary Education, which regulates career colleges, halted enrollment earlier this month at Corinthian's Everest and Wyotech schools in California. So, what do? What happens if your school closes? You've got a couple of things that you need to do, because when a school closes, the institution may give students the option of a teach-out, which is an arrangement to complete your program and receive your degree or certificate at another campus, program, or school. Now, one thing that people don't realize is there's no obligation to accept the offer of a teach-out. You can instead decide that you're not gonna complete your program. You get that opportunity, and if you do, you've got some things that you've got available to you with respect to your student loans. So let's talk about the things that you need to do outside of the student loans. You need to get your transcript if possible, because if the school closes, you may not be able to get your transcript ever again. It may be lost to the four winds. So get your transcript. Collect any proof that you have of your attendance, because even if you can't get your transcript, or even if a new school doesn't accept your transcript, at least you can show that you were in school. And that's really going to be important, because if you've got federal student loans that maybe existed prior to going to this school, you need to be able to show when you were in full-time attendance for the purposes of being able to get an in-school deferment. For federal Stafford subsidized loans, remember, the government pays your interest while you're in an in-school deferment, so it's really to your financial benefit. So after you've gotten your transcript and your proof of attendance, assuming that you can do so, you want to access the NSLDS system. That's the federal system administered through the U.S. Department of Education, which gives you full information about all of your outstanding loans. So you really want to access NSLDS to be able to determine what your outstanding federal student loan balance is. From there, you want to be able to consider a school closure loan discharge. Now, a school closure loan discharge is going to allow you to potentially get your unpaid federal student loans wiped out. And you should consider a school closure loan discharge if one of the following two applies. One, if your school closed while you were enrolled and you could not complete the program of study for which the loan was intended, or if you were attending the school within 120 days of the closure date or on an approved leave of absence when the school closed. So you may be able to look at a school closure loan discharge even if you completed your course of study within the past 120 days, or if you were on an approved leave of absence as of the date that the school closed. If you have your loans discharged through the school closure loan discharge, but then later complete your degree at another institution, you may be required to pay back those loans. So if this is your situation and you prefer to apply for the loan discharge rather than opting to complete your degree at another institution, there's a form that you'll need to ask your lender for the discharge. So we've got a copy of that form linked on the show notes to this page over at studentloanshow.com. If you do qualify for the discharge, you could have your entire loan balance forgiven additionally, though. And this is kind of neat. If you've already made some loan payments or had garnishes or tax refunds withheld related to these student loans, you may also be able to have those refunded back to you. Now, if your loans are completely discharged under the program, any negative references on your credit report should be removed from your credit report. If only a portion of the debt's forgiven, your credit report should be adjusted to reflect this status. It is important to note that a closed school loan discharge is taxable. Now, what does that mean? In the year that the loan debt is discharged, you're going to get an IRS Form 1099-C for that amount. For example, if you had $50,000 in loans forgiven, your taxable income for that year may climb by the amount, which can cost you thousands of dollars in individual taxes, but there are some means to get around that. You should talk to your tax professional about IRS Form 982 and whether or not there is a way for you to not have to pay taxes for that discharge debt. What happens if you don't qualify for the school closure loan discharge? Don't panic, because you can still look into income-based repayment or pay-as-you-earn and be able to reconfigure the payments that are due under your federal loans using either of those programs. Now, you may also have rights of action against the school for fraud or misrepresentation, and you want to talk to a lawyer about that. I don't do any of that work in my practice. I don't sue schools for fraud and misrepresentation. I don't sue trade schools, but there are lawyers who do that. And I would encourage you to do a little bit of digging and take a look at whether or not that may be an option for you. Now, once you've taken care of the federal student loans, and granted it is a bit of a slog, but you want to be able to see what the situation is with the private student loans. You want to pull your credit report if you don't know what all of your private student loans are. Unfortunately, private student loans don't offer a school closure loan discharge. In fact, there are no federal programs whatsoever with respect to private student loans. If you've got a private student loan facilitated by the closed school, you may have a few options. You may be able to qualify for partial or full payment of your private loans from a state tuition recovery fund if there's one available in your state. You may also be able to obtain a partial or complete discharge from the loan holder. It's very, 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 very rare, but it's a possibility. Doesn't hurt to pick up the phone and call your private student loan holder and see if they may be able to offer you any sort of relief whatsoever. I wouldn't count on it, but it certainly is available out there. And of course, the third option is you may be able to assert the closure as a defense to repayment based on state law, such as breach of contract or other violations. Again, you want to talk to an attorney who deals with those matters specifically. And if you're looking for one, a great place to find a lawyer that may be able to help you with that is going to be either the studentloanlawyer.com and take a look. The student loan lawyer is Joshua Cohen. He's an attorney who practices in Connecticut and Vermont. He runs a workshop to train attorneys in the field of student loan law. I also work with Josh as part of that workshop, but we've got a list of graduates, and that may give you at least a starting point there. If all else fails, you can look at the National Association of Consumer Advocates at naca.net and take a look at their listing of member attorneys, and perhaps there's somebody there who might be able to fit the bill for you. I will put links to both of those sites into the show notes, so check out the show notes for that also. California does have a student tuition recovery fund, or an STRF. The California Student Tuition Recovery Fund exists specifically to relieve economic losses suffered by a student in an educational program that when the student is or was a California resident or was enrolled in a residency program, if the student enrolled in the institution prepaid the tuition, that means paid it upfront, either their own cash or with a loan, paid the assessment, and every school that operated in the state of California or that operates in the state of California collects that assessment for the Student Tuition Recovery Fund, and suffered a loss as a result of any of the following: the closure of the institution, the institution's failure to pay refunds or charges on behalf of a student to a third party for license fees or any other purposes, or to provide equipment or materials for which a charge was collected within 180 days before the closure of the institution. The institution's failure to pay or reimburse the loan proceeds under a federally guaranteed student loan program as required by law, or to pay or reimburse proceeds received by the institution prior to closure in excess of tuition and other costs, a significant decline in the quality or value of the educational program within the 30-day period before the closure of the institution, or if the decline began before that period, the period of decline determined by the state, and the student's inability to collect a judgment entered against a qualifying institution for violation of state law. What this means is, if the tuition was paid and the school closed, and you suffered a loss as a result of that in the form of you couldn't get your transcript, you couldn't complete your education, you couldn't pay the student loan back, you've incurred this student loan, you may be able to go back to the Student Tuition Recovery Fund. California is not the only state that's got a Student Tuition Recovery Fund. Arizona, Arkansas, California's got one, Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, New York, Nevada, Nebraska, Maryland, list goes on and on and on. I'm going to provide a list of the student tuition recovery funds to the extent that I know of them, and I encourage you to take a look to see if one of them might be able to help you out, because, again, these private student loans don't offer you any relief whatsoever. There are no federal programs. There's no closed school discharges. There's no income-based repayment. There's no pay-as-you-earn. There's no discharge. Pretty much, you get the loan and you've got to pay it back. But, and this is so important because so few people know about it, and nobody talks about it. The student tuition recovery funds are really going to help you out. So if you were a Corinthian student when the school closed, or if you were a Corinthian student even near the time that the school closed, you may be able to get out of your federal student loans under the school closure loan discharge if you meet the criteria. And in addition, if your state offers it, and California does, and New York, where I also practice, does as well, you may be able to get out of your private student loans too. So think about it. All of these problems with Corinthian, and you see all of these students having all of these issues, and now 16,000 students who were enrolled in a Corinthian school on Friday are now out in the cold. Suddenly, you've got you've got some tools, you've got the ability to take a stand and be able to walk away from at least a portion of your federal and perhaps even your private student loans. I highly encourage you to do that. And of course, if you need help and you're listening to this, you're looking for a lawyer, please feel free to get through to me. I'm happy to sit down and talk to you for a consultation to try to analyze your situation and give you some pointers. I practice in the state of California as well as in the state of New York, both statewide, so I can help you there. And for anybody else, I can talk to you about the federal student loans, but you may opt to talk to somebody in your home state who may be able to help you address both the federal as well as the private student loan issues. So that's been today's show on what do you do if your school closes. Now you realize that you're not left high and dry. So go ahead and take some action with respect to that. If you know somebody who could use this information, please pass it along to them. I'm sure they're going to thank you for it just because there are so few places where you can get this information. And really what I'm here for is to help spread the word. My name is Jay Fleischman. You have been listening to the Student Loan Show. You can find show notes as well as prior episodes at studentloanshow.com. Check it out there. Subscribe to us in iTunes or on Android or in your podcast application of choice. If you found this show useful, please go out to iTunes, give us a rating and a review. It only takes a few minutes. I really appreciate it, and you have no idea how helpful it is to be able to know what it is that we're doing right, what it is that we're doing wrong, what we can change up and fix, make better for you. In addition, it also helps us to be found when other people are searching for information about student loans in the iTunes Music Store. Until next time, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you back here next Tuesday.